Payal.
Hi. So good to see you, Krista.
Yeah, so good to see you, Payal. And today, this is a very interesting and special episode, right? Because we are doing something a little different from the typical interviews that we normally do with our cast guests. And perhaps, Payal, you'd like to introduce yourself first.
Yeah, sure. As Krista has said, my name is Payal Nayar, actually, and I live in Singapore, but I'm a global citizen because I have homes in Singapore as well as in Spain. I am a professional podcaster. I have two shows, Melting Pot and Now Boarding. I started my podcaster journey in 2020, and there's been no looking back since then. In fact, I started with Melting Pot, and then I added Now Boarding as my second show 2 years ago. And like I said, quickly no looking back, because I'm very passionate about what I do, the kind of messaging that I am very clear that I want to send out, and also the kind of impact that I'd like to create through both my shows. And I'm just soldiering on and loving every single minute of my journey.
Wow. And how I met you is also a story in itself, right?
Yeah.
I was just reaching out to podcasters in the Asian region. And I really wanted to talk to a fellow podcaster and someone who's female because
Yeah.
I find that I think we're not like a small group, but we are quite a difficult group to find, I must say.
Yeah, no, and I think it's so important for us to be able to support each other and create a community, because through your podcast as well as my podcasts, the whole objective is, yes, impact, storytelling, but also to build and be able to create. And I think for the fact that I remember your message when you reached out to me saying that even if nothing comes out of it, at least I'm saying hello to a Asian woman podcaster, which I thought was very interesting. And of course, I remember we had a chat and how we just felt so connected, and then just decided to do this very interesting format where we chat with each other as two podcasters, but we both have our own identity, and our approach is different, but at the same time it's similar. So I think it will be nice to get an understanding during the course of this conversation on how we are, in terms of what we're trying to do, the kind of similarities that we have, and if there are any differences, then what are those?
And I also like to dig into things like some of our challenges as well, because for a lot of people, they just think that we just hit the record button. That's all we
Yeah.
do, right?
Yeah, no, but there's absolutely, you're right. It's all, I feel as a podcaster, there is a certain responsibility that we have, because we are, especially if it's interview based, because we search our guests and we have to make sure that they align with what our messaging is going to be, and align with our thinking. And I think that is so important. So then, and research doesn't come like easy, because there are so many different aspects of a guest that you need to understand while you're researching them before you can actually have them come on your show. And in your case, Krista, it's very, one, women centric, and two, it's within the region, right, of Southeast Asia. Whereas my two shows are not, they have they're very specific in terms of the direction, but both my shows are, one, not women centric, and two, they're both global. So I have guests from literally all over the world. But what I'm trying to achieve is to have one single focus. And I think so that's the key for me. For you, it is one single focus because it's
Yeah.
women and it's
Yeah.
entrepreneurs as well, and they are from this region. So I
So
think,
mine is like super focused in that way.
yeah, yours is super
Um,
focused. Yeah.
yeah. The reason why I wanted super focus was because I pitched it as such to myself. First, I had to convince myself, who am I going to focus on that will make my search for my guests so much easier. So I narrow it down. And I realized that when I was doing this, when I was actually getting myself into this idea, I'm going to focus on a single, you could call it a single demographic in that sense. I found that even within that area of Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia, there were really diverse women. And there
Yeah.
were young women, millennial women, there were women in their 30s, 40s, 50s. So I found the diversity within that group that I was actually working with.
Yeah, no, that's interesting. Also, what gave you the idea?
Wow. That itself is a story that started back in Hawaii when I went for a women's leadership program. I Before I even hopped onto the plane to get to Hawaii, we were all asked to think of a project that we wanted to do after we got back from the 2 week leadership program. So for me, I just felt that I had to do something with digital because my business is in digital. And I realized that because of my own love for podcasts, and I've been listening to them for what, more than 10 years. And I always tell this story that I listen to so many podcasts that my iPod died on me. And I just can't turn on my iPod anymore after 10 years. So that was
Yeah.
really maximum use of my iPod. So when I went there, I pitched a podcast as a project that I wanted to do. But back then, I just wanted it to be a podcast that I interviewed Malaysian women in business.
Okay.
But my coordinator and all the people around me in that leadership program said that it was too narrow a focus. I should widen my area of coverage a little bit bigger so that I could reach out to more women across the region. So I told myself, okay, maybe Asia would be a good place to start because Asia is already big enough for me to cover so many countries in Asia. And so that's how I started with that podcast. It was just to me, it was just something that I really wanted to do because I wanted to hear stories of women, real heartfelt stories, and stories that enabled me to learn something as well.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that is very important. So for me, I have a background in travel because from the age of 17, I started working because I live, anyways, that's a different story. But I always, and so travel is my life. That's one. And two, because of that, I tend to meet so many different people. So from so many different cultures, different environments, different way of thinking. And so I have always been passionate about that because I like connecting with people. I think that personal connection is so important for not just your personal growth, but also it enables you to learn a lot more. It enables you to have a better understanding of people. And I feel, and I've always felt my entire life, that is so important. So, one was connecting with people. Two was the fact that I am a professional voice talent. After I gave up my corporate existence, I was doing voiceovers professionally, and I've dabbled in multiple things creative because essentially I am a creative person. And that's when I felt, okay, in my new avatar, I know voice is my strength. So if I can have an extension of that, plus what I love to do is travel and meet people. So if I could combine all of it and start a show, I should say, it just
Checks all the boxes, right?
all the boxes tied in so beautifully that I ended up, and obviously had to do a little bit of research on what it means to be a podcaster. And because I do voice, I understand equipment and all of that. So I started with a recorder, and so it was not video. And wherever I traveled, I would find interesting people and I'd say, okay, let me just have a conversation. And that's how I started. And then I realized that I had such a big, I had collected so many interviews, and I said, okay, now I need to do something with them. And that's when I started editing them. And the first interview for me was most impactful. And that's why I launched my show Melting Pot with that interview. And I wanted Melting Pot to be very diverse. So and it's society and culture. So I talk to people they could be in the arts, they could be entrepreneurs, they could be motivational speakers. And what I do, which I find interesting, is I create mini series within the show so that it aligns itself. So like my current show is called Mics and Minds, a current series rather is called Mics and Minds, where I talk to motivational speakers and people who have tried to bring about change. And it's fascinating, the kind of guests that have reached out to me wanting to be a part of it. Whereas my other show, Now Boarding, is more focused, not as focused as yours, but it still is, because I feel like a background of travel has helped, being in the travel industry. So I wanted to get people to understand how important it is for us to protect our environment. And that's how the idea germinated. And then the fact that I have guests on my show who are championing ecotourism, or wildlife conservationists, or who are dealing with sustainability on a regular basis. So in that sense, both my shows are very diverse from each other. And I just feel that whatever it is, and I know that you would definitely feel the same, that every conversation is important. And every conversation that will help impact someone, even if it's one person, I think we've done our job. And I don't know if you agree with me, but I feel I'm very passionate about that. And I just feel that one is, it's a constant learning for me, which I'm sure it is for you as well, because it's an education. And for me, I talk to so many, like, I didn't understand sustainability. Of course you do, but in terms of carbon footprint, in terms of specific, it's the practitioners who then talk to you, and then it makes a lot of difference. And so for me, I feel like I'm on constant study mode, learning mode.
When I hear what you say, I think there are so many similarities between the both of us, right? One is we love connecting with people and we
Yeah.
love learning. And there's this insatiable curiosity that we want
Yeah.
to find out more about what the other person's world is like.
Yeah.
And I think that makes us excited to create our episodes or even to do the research about the person before we talk to that person. And that itself makes me happy doing it. So I don't know whether that is something that is similar to other podcasters, but I feel that every time I get into a recording, I am uncovering a world that I may not necessarily know about. And that world is opened up to me. But at the same time, after I record that episode, I get to share that knowledge with other people who want to be part of that too. So I find that it's such magic, right? In today's age, both of us, look at us, Payal, like both of us, we're sitting in different countries. We are doing completely different things, but we managed to sit and
This is our
record this.
connection. Yeah.
Yes, this
Yeah.
conversation.
It's
The
true.
beauty, yeah, of today's tech that allows us to do this wherever we are. And even when you're traveling, you can just do it, regardless of
Yeah.
where your guest can be.
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think that sort of is it's special. And I think also the fact that we are in people's because we understand that today there is so much information that there is an information overload, and people also don't seem to have that kind of time anymore. Excuse me. So people are, because otherwise it was all about watching. But now with a podcast, you can listen, you get busy, you can stop, and then you can go back to it. It's in ear. So it's almost like we are talking to an individual, and it becomes so much more personal and so intimate, and it's in ear versus you're actually having to sit back and you're actually watching something. So I feel that the industry has really evolved over the years, and I think there is there's so much more that is coming, and the fact that we as podcasters are enablers, I feel is so important, and I feel great.
Yeah. But yeah, I want to ask you this question now. What have
Yeah.
you learned from your podcasting journey since you have two
What have
podcasts?
yeah, what I've learned is the importance of being able to tell a story truth and to be able to create that impact through conversations, I feel is because I think storytelling is a very important aspect, especially a podcaster who interviews. I feel it's extremely important. And that's where it's been a very important learning for me.
I think the biggest lesson for me is that I know that a lot of things before I started, I thought it was like, okay, I'm going to get into an online interview with a person. But I realized that there's so much before. I realized I knew there was going to be research and work involved. But after that, I realized a lot of it is really related to marketing, because while we can create the episode and the interview, if we don't market it, no one knows that the episode exists or is alive or is out there for someone to listen to. So I believe that from what I've learned over the years is that marketing is really a key component of having a podcast, because without the marketing, no one knows you exist. Yeah, so that part, even as someone who does marketing, I feel that wow, there's a lot of marketing happening, or there's a lot of marketing work that needs to happen
It needs
even
to be
for
done.
podcasters.
I agree. But again, for me, I think it's again it's the for me the most relevant and important thing is what I am communicating and the community that I'm creating as a result of all these conversations. I think for me, yes, marketing is an aspect of it, but I feel it comes from the heart of what I'm doing. And then marketing is a tool which is an extension of being able to enable more people to hear the conversations. That is important. But for me, I think I still feel that what's important is that there is truth in, and that there is an important message at the end of every conversation. And the change and the impact that it's able to create gives me far more fulfillment when the feedback that I get from listeners or even from guests, when they say that, oh my God, this has really, I've had feedback from guests where they've said that you've made me so comfortable that I've spoken about things which have not really, like they're buried somewhere because I'm just so busy with doing what I'm doing. So thought provoking, I think, is very important. That's one. And listeners who've come back to me saying that, or some reviews that I've read where they've said that just listening to this conversation, I feel empowered and I feel that yes, it's possible. I think the key is that even for you, when you started as a podcaster, or for me, or you start doing anything in life, right? There's always hesitation, there's fear, there's concern. Will it work? Will it not work? But if you put your mind to it, and if you are determined, and if you feel that what you want to do and what you want to create, you may fail, but you have to keep trying. And I think that's something that I believe in. That's been my entire life, where I haven't hesitated to do something which I feel is important. And it's not that I've succeeded every single time, but I feel that if you don't try, you don't really know. And it's the unknown which is far more complex. And so I feel that the fact that you and I, as podcasters, we're able to empower others to start thinking that yes, it's possible. If in your case, if she could do it, not you, but one of your guests who may have done something remarkable, if she can do it, so can I. And similarly for me, with all the guests that I talk to, even if one or two of them have had the ability to create that impact, I think I feel that's the most important for me. And the rest follows, of course. That's more mechanical, that's more like you use different tools and you do all of that to make it out there and for people to be able to hear it, and all the hard work that we put into creating the episode. It's not just the research, it's the talking to the guests, it's the
Curating questions.
exactly, and the post production as well, and then the marketing. So it's all these steps that you have to take, and it all then comes together. So that's the way I look at it.
I love it when you said that, like, some of your guests come back and let you know that the questions were thought provoking and it made them maybe realize something that they didn't realize, right? Because they were busy with their lives. And these are also some of the feedback I get from my podcast guests, is that at the end of our recording or interview, they said, wow, it felt like a therapy session because no one has ever asked them such questions that made them stop and pause
Yeah,
and think and reflect. And I think
yeah,
that's part of being human, right? We can see ahead of us what we want to do in our future unless we stop and pause and really realize how far we've come.
yeah.
We wouldn't even realize that we're actually all quite remarkable creatures. We
So
actually have a lot.
yeah, and you need someone to sometimes give you that push, because otherwise, today, with kind of environment we live in, it's constant go, and everyone competing with the next person, trying to find ways of how do I get ahead. There's all kinds of motivation for people because of this competitive world that we live in, and technology hasn't quite helped with that. It's helped in a lot of ways, as you mentioned earlier. But I feel that so then if we are tools or we're enablers for people that we talk to actually pause and think because of the kind of thought provoking questions that we ask or conversations that we have, I think, yeah, makes a difference.
And sometimes the listeners can also use the same questions for themselves as
Yeah.
part of their own therapy session or reflection, whichever way you want to call it. And
Yeah.
they may realize things about themselves. So I think one of the things that I always let my listeners as well as my guests know is that I want to present stories that are stories of courage, but also stories of hope and stories of optimism, because we need each other. We need
Yeah.
role models. We need inspiration. Even it could be just something you said, a quote, or
Yeah.
something that you realize and you said it on the podcast. someone will take that to heart and someone will say, wow, I really like that message. And like you said, it's just that message that we
Yeah.
want listeners to really take it with them and
Yeah.
perhaps even brighten up some of their darkest days.
Yeah.
And that we would have done our job, right? We would have made ourselves feel like, wow, I did a good job. Even to that one person or two people or three people, whoever who listened to that episode felt that, wow, they derive something really
Yeah.
beautiful from it.
But I feel that because ours is so direct and and impactful, I feel we've genuinely made the effort to make a difference. And it's not so much about making money, it's more about making a difference. That's the way I look at it.
I think that you have also been doing a really good job because now you've gone to podcast number two because not only do you have one pod, you're making impact in two other different areas, sustainability and the first one, the melting pot, which is
Mental
diversity and all that. Yeah.
culture, yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that. I think, yeah. And therefore, it's double the effort. But it's all, at the end of the day, I feel it's all worth it.
Payal, I'm sorry to cut you out. I just wanted to ask you, what's your vision for your, is there a vision for a third now that you have talked about
Your
podcast number two?
vision for a third podcast. My vision is to, like I said, to create bigger global community. That is my vision. Whether it means adding a third, whether it means creating a community of podcasters, whether it means just being focused on melting pot and now boarding, I don't know. But I feel like it's time that will. As far as I'm concerned, for me, the most important thing is to keep the conversations going, and then how it progresses and what happens at a later stage, whether it's multiple more shows that I add on. I don't want to dilute the importance of what I'm doing. And I think for me, I want to stay true to what I'm doing. And that is all that matters at this stage. I don't know what it is for you, but that's how I feel.
I am taking each day as it comes. For me, my role in podcasting is to empower as many entrepreneurs, male or female, who listen
Right.
to Womenpreneur Asia, because I think part of it is just like you say, creating a community of people, making
Yeah.
them feel that they are part of something bigger than themselves,
Yeah.
and having them, and I feel that this is also because of entrepreneurship. Sometimes it can be a lonely journey. Sometimes you don't know what other entrepreneurs are doing or thinking. But if you can hear a story that really resonates with you and gives you hope, I think that journey is far more interesting because someone
Yeah.
else has done it, someone else
Yeah.
has walked the path. And I always reveal, I put all the links in my show notes. So if anyone who listens and wants to connect with that particular guest, he or she can do that by connecting with
Yeah.
them on LinkedIn and all the social media channels. So for me, I feel that it's a really open world that we live in. It should be as transparent as we can make it and create that kind of impact for other people. And we
Yeah.
being, like you say, the enabler, the platform to do.
You don't have to hold and keep it all for yourself, because then the whole objective of what we're doing is lost.
Yeah.
No, yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And that's my philosophy as well. So, yeah, I think it's important to, again, I am repeating myself, I know, but I think it's important to be true to yourself and true to what it is that what's your objective? Because that is what, I mean, we're not, I know that I'm not going to change the world, but which is impossible to do just on the basis of the platform. But again, it comes back to the one person who can get impacted. And then that person, in turn, then it becomes more of a sequence. And I think that is the key. And that's the way I look at it. Are you going to move away, or not necessarily move away, but include women from other parts of the world as well in your conversations? Or are you going to stay with women in Asia?
Yeah, I've had that question asked of me many times by other women from other parts of the world. So for now, I believe that I will still stick with Asian women entrepreneurs in Asia. That, in a way, has become it's a quick way for me to tell people. So, what is your podcast about? So, I interview and I feature stories of women who are in Asia, who are running businesses in Asia. But I'm open to other ideas. Perhaps in future, maybe a year from now, two from now, Payal, I'll tell you, yes, Payal, I have done some other regions of the world. I don't know. So I take it one day at a time.
Again, it's
Yeah.
like the question you asked me about what my vision is.
Yeah.
It's exactly the same, your response, that you have to be able to let it evolve, because it's a journey. And every journey we can't try and push something ahead of its time, because then it won't happen. So I think we need to be able to nurture, we need to be able to grow it, evolve with it, and evolve it. That's how it just becomes a process and a journey. And yeah, and I think both, I believe that we're on the right track, and I believe that what we're doing is meaningful, and I believe that we're not going to fold up so quickly. Like, there are a lot of podcasters who just get excited and then they don't know how to take it forward. But I think you and I are different in that sense. And, I also believe that the fact that we are having a conversation like we are as two podcasters, sharing our points of view, is very important, and grateful that we had a conversation earlier and it seemed like this was absolutely the right
The right thing to
thing,
do.
and it just flowed so naturally.
Maybe this is the start of something interesting. Maybe there should be a community of Asian female podcasters somehow.
Yeah, why
Community
not?
of that.
We can actually, as two established we could encourage women who don't know what it's all about. We could probably together create a platform for them.
Any last wrap up thoughts or key takeaways before we end this special recording?
Key takeaways. Firstly, it's been a lot of fun. It's just been a very natural progression of the conversation, which doesn't happen because we're not competitive. We have our own space. We have created our own and we are doing meaningful work. And I think that's why probably we have an understanding, and which is why it's become such a special conversation for me. In terms of key takeaways outside of this, just keep doing what you're doing. That's one. Two, I feel for people who will be watching or listening in, it's very important to not, I think it's very important to never say never. And if there is something that you want to, it's there in you, but you don't know how to, you don't have the means, or you're scared, don't hesitate. And I feel life is all about learning. And if there's something that you want to do but haven't been able to find or bring yourself to do it, don't stop, just do it. Because if you fail, you stand up again. And I think that's really how I look at life.
And I really agree with you, because sometimes when people ask me, how is it that you do all these things, right? And I tell myself, I take everything as an adventure and learning. And if I don't do well, at least I learned what I couldn't do well. Maybe I will do better the next round.
Yeah.
But if I do well, there's a lot of opportunities opening up. Look at us, right? I wouldn't have met you, Payal, if I weren't a podcaster. I would have reached out to you and found you on matchmaker.fm.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought that I know as a podcaster myself, people pitch me all the time, just like people pitch you all the time to be a guest on your podcast.
Yes.
But
Yeah.
I also told myself, I'm a fellow podcaster. I really would like to get to know Payal, not because I'm getting on her show or she's getting on my show, but because we understand the journey. It's not an easy journey, mind you, but it is also a very interesting journey whereby we are learning as we are creating our episodes or talking or connecting with all the people that we connect with. So
Yeah.
I find that we have that shared language, perhaps commonality, similarity. So I felt, wow, for the first time I found someone who I can really resonate with
Really.
and say,
Yeah.
hey, you
Yeah.
understand what I'm trying to tell you. And I think
Yeah.
that was the beautiful thing, that I could reach out to you as a fellow podcaster and say, Payal, let's get on a call. Let's just get to know each other. No obligations, no expectations, nothing of the sort. And look at us both. We're on the recording together.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. I think
So
sometimes, again, you did not hesitate and you said, what the hell? Let me just, I may not have responded, or I may have said, no, sorry, Krista, I'm not interested, or sorry, Krista, if you're not going to be a guest on my show, I don't care about you. But no, because I completely understood where you were coming from, because, like you said, we, in a sense, speak the same language, we have a similar understanding. And I think also the commonality being that we're women, we live in Asia. So there are lots of similarities which helped build the connection. And also, we may not have liked each other. So,
yeah, I
so,
know, right?
and, and then
This will be
what is
difficult.
happening now would not have happened at all. So I think this
Yeah.
is complete evidence and proof that,
You have to like each other before you get
yeah,
on a recording.
yeah, totally. Yeah, totally. And yeah, and I've really enjoyed the chat, and I hope you have as well.
Yes, I
And
look for maybe you could do a series together, women podcasters who undergo this journey as we undergo the journey.
yeah,
Maybe a year from
there's
now,
so
some
many,
things would have changed.
Krista, I think that's the beauty of being creative. There are so many ideas and that like germinate from conversations like this. I've already, like you've suggested something, I've suggested something. So we've already got a couple of ideas in place. And why not? We just
Adventure, right, Payal? Let's go.
adventure together, co-create together, and continue to create an impact. I think these are the three things that would definitely be very important. Yeah.
So, Payal, I know this is out of your regular duration for recording. I know this has been quite a long one. So, before we end, where can people find you or your podcast?
So I'm available on Spotify, on Apple, on YouTube, on Instagram, on LinkedIn. You can find me on these platforms. And for Instagram, it is podcast melting pot. That's the melting pot on Instagram. And nowboarding.podcast is for nowboarding. So these are the two. And of course, on Spotify and on Apple and YouTube, it's the name of the podcast. And also, I have a website, and all the episodes stream on the website as well. It's called Melting Pot Collection. And what about you?
So mine, you can Google me, Krista Goon, and you can also Google Womenpreneur Asia. Like yours, mine can be found on Spotify and all the major podcast apps, or you can go direct to womenpreneurasia.com, which is the website that has all the episodes and all the seasons. So yeah, so those are the places that you can find the both of us. So please remember to listen to our podcasts, Payal's and mine. Tell us what you like and come and share with us, right? What are some of the things? And if you're a fellow we welcome you to come and have a conversation with us too.
And we're going to come back to you with a couple of very interesting ideas. And if you're wanting to be a podcaster, we are there to help you. And actually watch this space, because I think Krista and we will have a lot brewing together. So just watch the space, is what I'm going to end this conversation with.